You know what I think we need? We need to bring back the teen girl heroine getting transported into a fantasy world and saving the day while also falling in love. I know, it sounds crazy, but hear me out. Kagome, Yuri, Yuki, all of these girls figured it out, and I think that's proof enough that this is a good idea. Today, a lot of people associate the isekai genre with a person down on their luck, dying, and as a result getting transported into a fantasy world akin to an RPG video game and having to figure it out as themselves, or reincarnated as a vending machine or some empress's fiance. A lot of the isekai genre was really paved by a lot of the older stories that may not have as many whimsical elements. Luckily, with the help of manga companies, a lot of these classic stories are getting a new chance to shine in the spotlight and really prove why they have been a pioneer in the isekai genre. Such is the case with the shojo classic Red River, with Viz announcing a new reprint of the series in an Omnibus 1 and 3 version. Many, like myself, are discovering this series for the first time, and what a journey it has been. I have always heard of Red River. It's hard to exist in the shoujo spaces, communities online without hearing about Red River and how badly people wanted a reprint of this series. I was completely new to the series, so when I had the opportunity to access it early via NetGalley and Viz, I definitely took the opportunity, and I am so glad that I did. But when I tell you that I was severely unprepared for what was about to enter my mind and thoughts, I was very, very unprepared. Red River was created by Chi Shinohara, a fellow Aquarian. It was published in Shokomi from January 1995 to June 2002. It spans 28 volumes and has been licensed in English by Viz. The story is about a 14-year-old girl named Yuri who is transported to Hattusa, an ancient civilization, due to a queen wanting to use her as a sacrifice for power. She meets Prince Kyle, who saves her from the queen's guards, and they immediately become entrenched with each other. While she wants to go home, Yuri finds herself in the middle of a power struggle of Hattusa and ends up becoming involved before she can leave. In the author's notes throughout the volume, we learn that Shinohara wanted to do a manga set in Hattusa after visiting the ruins. So right off the bat, this situation is crazy, and I immediately love how fantastical this story starts. You have a regular teen girl just plopped out of her life into a strange world where the first thing that happens is this strange but hot guy kisses her, and this kind of, to me, reminded me of my child imaginations when I was a kid or when I was a preteen, and I would think Aaron Carter would discover me on the street and fall in love with me. It's just so whimsical and out there, but it also makes sense. What's even crazier about this situation is that Yuri's home life is actually really good and was on the cusp of just getting better. Right before she's transported, she gets her first boyfriend, they start going on first dates. I believe she has her first kiss, and she's just having a good time. I think she's also about to take college preparation exams, so your girl's living the best teen life possible. And to me, this stood out because sometimes people are just out on their luck, and them getting transported to a new world is the icing on top of the terrible cake that they're going through. But in Yuri's case, she had it good at home. Her having such a good life at home just adds to the stakes of her being taken away and why she so desperately wants to get back. Red River, to me, really stood out because as someone who's raised by the Church of Clamp, and I'm very used to dark themes, it has been a while since I've read something that really gets dark very quickly. And we see that even just the premise of Yuri arriving at Hattusa is dark. She's going to be sacrificed in the method of being killed in order for this queen to have her way in her, you know, the power systems that exist. And that's like the first chapter. The first couple chapters, and you're like, wow, this is dark. And it just keeps getting darker. We see Yuri befriend Tito, the servant that serves Kyle, and he is very helpful to her. She gets close to him and feels like she can trust him. And then he is killed. He is gone. And like, we just got to know him, and already he has been killed. And not only has he been killed, then we see, unfortunately, his skin being used by the enemy wearing it. That doesn't feel just dark and eerie to you. I have no idea. But for me, and maybe because my taste and what I read now is just very different, I was a little bit alarmed. I was like, oh, this is getting crazy. And then I'm like, girl, you was raised by X in Tokyo, Babylon. This is on par with that. But it was still kind of like, oh. I was like, oh, this is what we're doing here. Another point of darkness in this series that we see throughout volume 2 and 3 is the fact that Yuri has to kill someone, and she has to kill specifically Suwa, who killed Tito, and avenge Tito's death. And for me, this is a very layered part of the story, because she personally feels guilt for killing Tito and knows in her heart that like it was her fault that Tito died because she rushed into the queen's area unprepared. And she, you know, if she would have just waited, none of this would have happened. So she feels that personal responsibility for Tito's death. And then this is also after the point where she has met Tito's family. They had been lied to, essentially believing that Yuri killed Tito like maliciously, intentionally. And while she didn't do that intentionally, you know, she didn't mean for him to die, she does feel like they are right. And in order to make amends, like, she has to prove to them that, you know, she didn't kill him intentionally by killing the person who killed him, Suwa. And the fact that this 14, 15-year-old girl, like, is having to make these decisions and literally take a life away after feeling the burden of a life that was lost at the, you know, helms of her actions, I was like, damn, Yuri, like, you going through it, girl. It really felt so heavy. And I love that there's so much nuance there with, you know, it's not just her exacting revenge. It's her feeling this burden. It's the family, and basically proving like I'm able to accept the consequences of my actions, even if these consequences are me taking away a life of an evil person. Yes, taking a life nonetheless, especially as somebody who probably never thought they would ever kill somebody. We see as the third volume ends that Yuri has pretty much done something very like amazing, in the sense that people are comparing her to Ishtar and they think she is related or a reincarnation or a symbol of the goddess Ishtar. She kills Zua with a specific dagger that is said to have belonged to the goddess. So already we see Yuri in this certain light where it seems like she's going to get this responsibility of being this beacon, of being this symbol, and also just being a warrior and a fighter in this time. And that's going to be an interesting thing to see play out, because, again, this is not her country. This is not where she's from. Her main priority had been to get home, but now she's stuck here, and what of it? Like, what else is going to happen? I'm very curious to see how this is going to play out in the future, and, you know, what else she's going to have to get into, and how she's going to struggle or deal with this part of her life that's unexpected. While we see her developing feelings for Kyle, also, you know, her wanting to get home and knowing that she missed that opportunity. And it's like, okay, you're juggling that, and also, wow, everybody in this place that is really down on bad times with all this war and, situation that's happening, we see now like how she's going to deal with that, and I'm very curious to see where it is. The one thing that I find didn't make that much of an impression on me yet, and I find that this is probably due to my age, is this potential budding romance with Kyle and her. At this point, I'm not impressed. I mean, yes, it's very early in the story, and she's kind of still thinking about her boyfriend at home, even though she is becoming very aware of Kyle, and she's noticing that she's caring about him, and she's kind of getting invested in his livelihood and like what is to come. And like I said, this part of the story romantically just isn't moving me yet, because I don't think it's bad in any way. It's very typical of a series of this time. But I'm just like, girl, like, you are about to be the symbol in this place. You're about to have all this responsibility thrust upon you, and you're kind of stepping into it. You've already, in the span of such a short time, have matured so much, have dealt with a lot, like grief and loss of Tito, but also loss of her life, and kind of recognizing that, wow, it doesn't look like I'm gonna be getting back home anytime soon. So the fact that like all those parts, like, they're just so cool that it's overshadowing the potential romance that I believe will come towards the end. Of course, is this romantic elements to this story. But I'm going to need a little bit more to impress me. Like, you can't show me that this girl is, like, this badass. Even if she's from the future, like, she came in and already is making waves in this place. And that, to me, trumps any romance. Like, focus on the fighting. Focus on the war. Focus on helping these people. Because you can't, you're not going to be able to go home for a while. The love can come later, and I'm sure that it will. With this series, it's important for me to keep in mind that it is definitely a product of its time in some of the sense with some of the tropes that we've seen. Like, for context, this series came out in January 1995. To me, reading it, I definitely see some of the things, especially in the relationship with Yuri and Kyle, or like, the blossoming relationship between them, where I'm like, I don't like this. But aside from that, I can't get over just how rich and detailed, just in the first 3 volumes, this series is. Isn't in just the first volume alone how much world building has been accomplished, and just how rich and nuanced specifically Yuri is. And I don't doubt that as the story goes along, we're going to see more of Kyle's motivations and the Queen's motivations. But right now, focusing on Yuri, it's not lost on me how much of a fully fleshed out character she was, even right from the beginning. And that, in something that is as old as this, is just so refreshing. It makes me so happy to see, because a lot of the times people, because of some things, like I find that like with a lot of older series, people will just put them like in a blanket statement, right? Like, for example, the romance between Yuri and Kyle that is blossoming, a lot of us are like, oh, this is, because like some of the themes and some of the approaches that we would not be okay with today. Specifically, kind of like him being very forceful with the kissing and with the affection. And, she has a boyfriend at home, so she ain't down with that. But that speaks to a lot of the product of its time. And sometimes I find that when stories contain things like that, people put an entire blanket on the series or on the story and think, well, this whole series has aged terribly because of this one concept that wouldn't be acceptable or is frowned upon today. And I don't like looking at series like that. And I think, especially with Red River, it's very important to kind of zoom out on that, especially because so much love and care has been poured into Yuri, and we're seeing that right from the beginning. And one thing that I love about older manga specifically, well, I do think some newer manga do this, but it really, I feel like, was done a lot back then, is that you see a lot of author commentary throughout the volume. And that, I find, helps form your thinking of the series too, because specifically for Red River in this first omnibus, all throughout each volume, the mangaka specifically talks about when she went to visit Hattusa, her interest in it, how she knew she wanted to do a story on this, the amount of research and time that it took her to put this story together. You can see that there's a lot of love and care that has been put into this series. Overall, Red River, with as much love and hype that it gets online, I'm so happy to report that for me personally, it did not disappoint. Some of my viewers may, if you follow me on other social media, may have seen some of my reactions as I started reading the series. And I'm clutching my pearls, but I'm very invested in this story. And I really can't wait to see, what else happens. And what Yuri is going to do, because damn, you missed the time to go home. And this is really, you're stuck here. And not only are you stuck here, but now you are a symbol of the society in maybe a positive way. But we're going to have to see how that plays out. But overall, I really, really like this series. I'm loving what I'm seeing. I think I saw today that volume 2, which should contain volumes 4, 5, and 6 of the manga, are available for early access for press. So I'm hoping I can get my hands on that, because I want to know what happens next immediately. Other than that, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I would love to know your thoughts on my thoughts, your thoughts on Red River. If you are not new to this series, you've been reading this since it came out, or if you're just discovering it now like me, I would love to know all of that in the comments, and we can continue this conversation. We can start our little newcomers to Red River fan club. I'm very happy to lead the charge on that. But this, like I said, this has been such an enjoyable volume, and I'm ready to see where this goes. Thank you guys for watching, and I will be back soon with another classic shojo that is getting relicensed, and I can't wait to talk about that one either. So I will see you guys on my next video, but for now,